Mom! A tiny high-pitched voice squeaked out. Carolyn Knight was at the end of her straw. God fucking damn it! She muttered under her breath, speaking to herself. Carolyn took comfort in that. She took a deep breath, doing her best to imitate a sane, loving mother. Yes, darling, she smoked, smiling, with a little twinkle in her eye. She looked at the putrid little brat with hatred inside, but with a mask of love on the outside. Mommy, why am I tied to a chair? I want to play princess. 4-year-old Victoria spoke, completely innocent. Her hands were tied tightly to a wooden chair. Her feet and legs were tied even tighter, causing great discomfort. She looked up at Carolyn, eyes glimmering and shining with hope. The lady she called Mommy had dark brown hair with mesmerizing hazel eyes, but of course, that was clouded by her mother's dark bags under her eyes, her messy, tangled hair, and her horrifying pale skin. No, sweetie, you aren't a princess today. You are going to play the part of a corpse. The mother spoke gleefully, almost like it was the same concept as going to a movie instead. The camera was finished being set up by her husband. Are all the watchers online? Shall we start? She asked her husband, but she already knew the answer. It was finally time to put the miserable child in her place. Victoria, you have been nothing but a pain in the ass since you came out of one. I'm glad to finally earn some money off of you. Then she offered a twisted, forced smile. Make sure to scream real loud, okay? She started filming and put her black ski mask on. Her identity was concealed from that point on. Her husband began the intro as she waited for the tools. Hot pokers, knives, screwdrivers, hammers, a scalpel, and even a plain old spoon were among the things she'd use on that little brat. The show began, and the tools all made their way into Victoria's flesh. First, the scalpel was dug into her eye socket. Victoria let out a blood-gurgling scream. She was too shocked and petrified to even get the tears out of her good eye. Her eye was scraped out by the scalpel. Once her father was off camera, he started masturbating. Fuck! He moaned. After minutes of intense masturbating to Victoria's screams, she came directly in her eye socket. The watchers really did seem to enjoy that. I'll spare you the rest of the details. They are quite gruesome, really. Trust me. The rest would make you puke up your lunch. The watchers commented things they wanted done to Victoria. Sick, sadistic, and even perverted things. Carolyn did them all with no hesitation. Money to her was far more important than any child. Finally, she bled out. Victoria went out screaming and crying from excruciating pain. That was the end of a 4-year-old daughter of Carolyn Knight. 3 years later, twins were born. A boy and a girl. Not that it mattered to Carolyn. She had to pick one to follow in her footsteps. She knows death all too well now. She could be executed for her crimes any day. It was important to keep her legacy alive. More importantly, to keep her account on the deep web active. A day after the birth of 2 lovely twins, Carolyn was laying in her hospital bed, about to get up and leave. She held Katie while her husband held Chris. The cries of the babies pushed her to the brink of insanity once more. She didn't want to deal with this now. Get them away, you piece of shit! Her husband picked up the babies and got in the car as his wife calmed herself enough to join them. They drove home in silence, besides for the baby's cries, that is. 11 years later, the twins were alive. Katie stole Chris's food, water, and sometimes even his clothes. Survival of the fittest, she called it. It was true. Their parents didn't give her much. Not like it mattered to Kate. Nothing mattered to Kate. Kate saw life as a game to be played. She saw her mother, father, friends, teachers, and brothers as pawns in her game. Chris could go hungry for all she cared. Unlike Chris, Kate knew what her parents did on the internet. She wasn't alarmed, or even shocked by it. She knew her mother was struggling with depression and severe insomnia, but she didn't care. Not at all. She just knew not to make her angry. Carolyn was her source of food, water, and shelter. Nothing more, nothing less. Kate took more interest in the deep web as she grew older. She even peeked through the door once her parents were torturing a victim. She just stared at the victim until the light left his eyes. Soon enough, Kate's 15th birthday soon approached. She decided what she wanted for her birthday. There was only one thing. She wanted to be accepted by her parents as an elite, strong daughter. She knew she had no chance of a normal life after what she'd seen, so why not follow in their footsteps? She told her mother everything she knew about how they worked and what they did. Her mother smiled, something she hadn't done in quite a while. Caitlin knew instantly which one would be her equal. If not her equal, then she would be her successor. Well, if you want to really impress me, there is something you could do. Carolyn spoke carefully and quietly. I would do anything, Mother. Then torture and kill Chris. We have no use for him now. It's fine. Nobody will miss him. I've got a cover story. I will teach you. Make me some money, darling. Yes, Mother. Kate didn't feel worried, depressed, or even angered by her mother's lack of compassion and love for her children. She knew what she had to do. She had a goal, and she needed to achieve it. She wanted to be like her mother. That was the only thing she wanted in life. Kate soon drugged Chris and dragged him down to the basement. She tied him up with many ropes to make sure he wouldn't escape. She hummed as she knotted the thick ropes. She made sure the camera was in place when Chris woke up. She gagged him and strolled over to him in front of the camera to greet her audience. There was only one mistake since she was ever so inexperienced. She forgot to wear her black ski mask to protect her identity. A fatal mistake. The show began. Her mother supplied her with weapons, but did not stay to watch the show. Kate strolled in front of the camera, naked. Pedophiles, criminals, and perverts are all welcome here. Welcome to my new show. Chris was also naked, which really did turn some of the watchers on. Katie blew a kiss to the camera before she grabbed a sharp blade. She cut Chris's cheek deeply. Chris bit his lip. Open wide, brother! She forced his mouth open with her hands and cut Chris's tongue out with the blade. Slowly, she sliced. Chris yelped in agony, his eyes filling with tears. He gripped onto the wooden chair tighter. Katie took out his tongue from his mouth. She held it in front of the camera, almost bragging. She dangled it in front of her and then forced it down Chris's throat. Chris gagged for a bit, but then swallowed. Blood poured down his mouth onto the ground. Next, Katie did something extremely painful to the poor boy. She grabbed her hammer, winked at the camera, and then proceeded to bash the boy's genitals. Chris passed out from the pain. Katie didn't want to wait for him to wake up, so she doused him in gasoline. She carefully lit him on fire, and put the fire out when it was about to spread. And that's all for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. A special thanks to KidLover666 and Pedo Panda for sponsoring this episode. Donate some more bitcoins. She winked at the camera and fondled her breast. And don't forget to tune in next time. She shut off the camera. Then, she stretched out her arms. With this feeling, she never felt it before. She'd always been so robotic and nonchalant with her words and actions. But today, she felt a feeling of ecstasy when she tortured him. No, more than ecstasy. She could finally feel emotion. She could be human when she did this. Katie wasn't about to let go of being human. Not by a long shot. After she finished getting rid of her brother's bloody corpse, she cleaned the basement. Cleaning the basement took around 2 whole hours of her time. What a bother. Katie smirked to herself as she got her bathrobe, underwear, and towel. Her underwear was old and really not the freshest, but that was the least of her worries. She walked to the bathroom and set her things down on the white marble counter across from her bathtub. While she ran the hot water from her bath, she heard a few noises from outside. Probably just my parents fighting, stupid bastards. She didn't care for her parents like other children. They were only kept alive to ensure her survival. Her mother hitting her father was the least of her problems. Without a care, she undressed and climbed into the bathtub. She washed her dark brown hair deeply, so she got all the blood off. The bathtub was dark red a few times later. It disgusted her. Katie chose to ignore it, sighing. She closed her eyes and laid back, thinking about how she killed her brother in cold blood. She had to admit, she was getting a little excited from the thought of what she did. She rubbed her pussy, gently pleasuring herself for the moment while she thought of her brother's scream. She slipped a finger inside of herself and moaned. She wanted more of this. She needed more victims, more corpses, just to feel this amazing feeling again. Then, without warning, the door burst open. Men with black ski masks and grease-stained shirts kicked the door wide open. She was just a few meters in front of them in the tub. "What the fuck?" she yelled in surprise. One of the men walked over to the bathtub, not too quickly, not too slowly. He had a dirty white shirt and was overweight to say the least. He picked Katie up like she was a puppy or even just a normal kitten. A pill was shoved down her throat as she gagged. "Keep quiet and take the pill, whore," one of the men grumbled. Katie thrashed around violently, trying to break free of the man's grip. The pill's medicine was kicking in. She began to feel woozy, and the room spun. She fought until the very last moment, I assure you. But in the end, she was no match for the man. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a camera. "Can we start it now?" one of the men asked, clearly impatient. A fatter of the two glared at him, silencing him. One of them carried Katie's body out. Another two came with her parents. They put them all in a white, dirty truck. All of them have been drugged. Once they were at the place the men worked, the parents were stripped and gagged. Katie's eyes fluttered open. She was still dizzy. The room seemed to be spinning. The moment she opened her eyes, one of the men grabbed her arm and set her on a chair. She was tied to the chair, restricting her movement. She saw three important things. A laptop, a camera, and two men unzipping their pants. She blinked, and it seemed like, in just an instant, the men were raping her mother and father. What? Kitty blinked again. Slower this time. She couldn't believe it. Katie was being forced to watch the rape of her parents. After minutes that seemed like days, her parents were decapitated. Katie was hauled over to the corpses and forced to lick up their blood. All of it. The metallic taste was putrid. But she did it. The camera was shut off soon after, and Katie stared at one of the taller men, confusion in her eyes. "We have seen the way you work." The men spoke in a heavy Russian accent. "You will be ours now. My name is Anatoly." Katie nodded, and wiped the blood from her mouth with her forearm. "What exactly will I do for you?" Katie asked, fearing the worst. "You are attractive, very much so. You will bring in the men and women, so we may make profits." Katie nodded. The man's English was great. Even though it was a little hard to understand him because of his accent, it wasn't going to be so bad. She'd get to experience the euphoric feeling again. Actually, things were looking up. So she dyed her hair red, get some normal clothes, and attended regular high school. Katie Knight was a very good actress. Of course, she wouldn't go for the children at her high school. That would be too obvious. She went for the siblings and family. She was ever so seductive with her words. Luring in victims was a piece of cake. Katie's new life was wonderful, for her at least. I know this because I am the one you call Katie Knight. Of course, that isn't my real name, but you may call me it. I'm sharing my story because I want you all to experience true fear when you sleep tonight. Please know that if you're in high school, and you're a high school student, you may know me. You could be a victim, my victim. For all you know, I could be staring at you. A twinkling in my head and bloodlust in my eyes. I could be outside your window, or in your closet. You never know who people really are, until it's too late. Keep that in mind as you drift off to sleep tonight. Farewell, Katie Knight.